Hello and welcome to Game Changer Live, brought to you by Connor's Coaching. If you like what we bring, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to our content, and leave a comment at the end of this video about what inspired you today. We were created to inspire content with regards to coaching, positivity, mindset, and so much more. And we bring guests live every other week on Wednesday at 3:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we are joined today by a fabulous guest, Marianne. Thank you so much for joining us. Marianne is the owner of Sheltering Tree, Your Sheltering Tree. Um, and she's also a frequent guest on our show. She's been here several times with us to talk about emotions over the holidays and surviving grief and all sorts of different types of topics. But you're here to talk to us about something different and a different type of passion of yours, aren't you, here today?
Ye- I
So,
am.
you know what, Marianne, why don't you, in your own words, tell us about who you are as a coach?
Well, technically, I am a certified life and business coach, and my specialty is grief. And part of my passion is educating people about all the different types of grief there are and how it is something we need to talk about and share with each other. And there's no shame in feeling your emotions. It's important to be able to express them. Otherwise, you can't move forward. You're stuck in the past. And I not only work with individuals, but I also work with companies. And for many years, I worked in the corporate world. And I found that the HR department in particular had to do a lot of the dirty work, and they didn't get any love. They there was they had to just follow up on all the policy, be the person who laid individuals off. If somebody was upset, they had to hear the brunt of, and they had to keep it all confidential. And I could see, and I talked to a lot of them, and I know that there is a need for HR departments to be supported, to have a place where they can share in a confidential way with each other and be more human. So that's something that I'm working on right now, being able to create a support group of sorts for HR professionals. Because, well, go ahead. Were you going to
Well,
say
I
something?
just was going to say, there are HR professional organizations out there like SHRM and
Mhm.
but the difference is that they offer professional support or policy support. They don't really offer that kind of emotional support. And
Right.
if they do, it's not with the heart. And I think what you're talking
Mhm.
about is from the heart.
Yes. And I know that just being in the corporate world and both within the corporate world as an employee and then as a hired consultant within the corporate world, that um, I remember several HR people coming to me for the confidential conversations as well, because they were threatened by people who were being laid off. They were the constant barrage. There was this constant barrage of complaints, and what do you mean? And it can
Negativity.
be, oh yeah, and it's very debilitating. And then as a human being, if you take that home with you, it affects your family life. And then your family gets the short end of the stick. And then if you have family issues that are going on, maybe you're going through a divorce. Maybe one of your parents is um, suffering dementia, or a spouse, or there's a problem with a child, or you aren't feeling well. You're having some mental issues where there's no benefit really for that. It's not something that even within a team of HR people, maybe they don't want to share with others that are there, but with a stranger, it might be a little bit easier. So that's part of what I'm doing.
I appreciate your humor and I love your laugh. Um, so tell us about the people in the audience that really should listen to this talk today that you're here to give us. Who among the listeners are you really wanting to hear you?
Well, anybody who's in the corporate world for sure, but anybody who knows someone specifically in HR, that if you're a leader within a company and you want your company to be at its peak, the HR department is really the heart. You, as a leader, yes, you have to make all of the decisions about where the company is going, but quite often the HR department has to follow through on a lot of the policies and procedures. And if you have a big layoff coming, they have to deal with all of that as well. And one of the companies that I had come into was laying off 150 people when I was contracted, and I became part of the exit package. So as people got their layoff notices, they also included for them were several conversations with me to be able to vent, to be able to get clear, to be able to establish positive ways to move forward. But you got to get rid of the old stuff and have that venting time.
Yeah, you
So I
do.
think so. The individuals specifically, anybody in HR for sure, any leaders within organizations, business owners, or anyone who knows someone in HR, I think that all of this would be applicable.
Yeah, or small business owners who have a couple of employees and they're their own HR person, but
That's
they
true.
might not identify as the HR person, but they're responsible for doing all the things you mentioned. You know what? One of the things that you said, um, it really, I'm going off of what we were going to talk about here for just a second, but I know you're okay with that. So, one of the things that you said really reminded me of a field of HR that's very specific,
Mhm,
and it's a field of change management, and it's really the crossroads between grief and
mhm,
HR, because the biggest thing that you deal with in change management are really the seven stages of grief, or the fear, and the
mhm,
emotional response to the unknown and the change that's going on. And I know that with grief that you really talk about the change and
mhm.
honoring the emotional experience of what that is like. So it makes perfect sense that that you're the right person to talk about this with HR professionals in particular.
Right. And I think these days, specifically, there are even more policies. And right now, there are so many layoffs happening across the board within a lot of the tech sectors that I'm sure that there's a lot of organizations that are in upheaval and there's
Yeah.
quite a bit of chaos. So it can work not only keeping the HR team centered and grounded and able to continue doing their work, if there are needs outside of the HR department that need some assistance as well. You know, if they're the people that are left behind will have, oh my God, there's fear. Am I the next one that's going to be laid off? How long
Yeah.
will this really last? Or they feel guilty for not getting laid off. So there's a lot of feelings that don't get addressed, and it affects the performance across the board.
It does. It can create active disengagement. And one of the
Mhm,
things I used to talk about a lot is how engagement is 30% of your productivity. If
mhm,
you improved your engagement, you could have 30% more productivity. It's 30% more profit. That's 30% more, action. That's 30% more customer satisfaction.
mhm.
What could you do with 30% more in your business? Why aren't you addressing your culture?
Right. And
Yeah.
you want people who want to come to work.
Yeah.
And
Quiet
if
quitting
you
is a
and
big
if
topic.
you are going to be inundated with delivering bad news, being hollered at and threatened, and just generally needing to do a lot of things that are displeasing to you. How long can you last doing that?
Yeah.
And then there's a ripple effect going outward. And not only that, there's the confidentiality issue. You can't really talk about it and reveal anything. But if you have a confidential resource, someone like me that you can talk to and say, you don't have to use names, but you can just release all of that regret, all of that anger that you end up feeling and hanging on to.
Yeah.
And there are all sorts of mindfulness practices that can be shared within the organizations as well. That there's something about being fully present, knowing what you can do and what you can't do. What's within my control? I can't control what's happening in the economy. I can't control really what's happening within the company, but I can control how I'm reacting to it. What can I do to be a better contributor to this organization? And leaders need to ask that as well. What can I, how transparent can I be and honest and open with the employees, and really let them see I'm a little bit at a loss, and I regret needing to do this right now.
Yeah.
So there's asking for contributions and being really caring how people are doing.
It's such a weird thing because we spend a lot of time pretending that we're not human, right?
Mhm,
We
mhm,
pretend that we're perfect. We pretend that we are not flawed. And it's those times where we actually show vulnerability that make people feel safe, even
mhm,
when we have to do something that can feel challenging or overwhelming. And it seems like there's also an inner conflict that you want to address as well, that someone's own personal values are
mhm,
also part of this picture. It's not just the company's values, it's not just the company's
mhm.
bottom line, it's also the individual that needs to be supported, that needs to have their values recognized and be integrated into their position.
Right. Yeah. That quite often people who get into HR are people pleasers, or that they come into it because they have a lot of heart and they want to make a difference for the people and the culture. But with all of the policies and the regulations and all of that stuff is really important, but you end up feeling more like a policeman or a traffic cop, or the I think if you're in a parenting situation, you'd be the good parent, bad parent.
Yeah.
It's like then
Yeah,
you
no
start to
one
feel
wants HR to be called into the meeting. It was the old feeling that we had. And I used to work in HR, and I shared this with you, when we were talking, that oftentimes when you're in HR you feel like an afterthought, or you feel like an inconvenience to business
right.
itself, because you're giving bad news on both sides. You're saying, no, you can't just fire half of your staff that way. That's
Hmm.
illegal. You have to do these things. These are the processes that you have to follow. And so you're giving bad news up the chain, you're giving bad news down the chain, and it can feel a little bit like you are the unwanted, unloved portion of the house. We used to joke, and it may be offensive to someone, but we used to say that we were the ugly redheaded stepchildren
Yeah.
of the company,
Mm-hmm.
and that was coming from the mouths of the people that you're
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
Yes, and that's part of the reason I decided to go down this route for HR professionals, because I know that unless their personal needs get met, unless they get addressed, that they're not going to be able to perform at their highest peak, because all of that personal stuff is going to still be in there. All of those pains or uh, conflicts about what they have to do versus how they would like to behave, or always being shunned, or, oh no, it's HR. Who's getting laid off next? That all the feelings that they have around how they're being treated can come out when they have a confidential support space to be able to share everything.
Well, we've really quite covered a lot of the next question that I have
Okay.
to ask. But let's just to clarify it, let's put it in a box. What are some of the challenges that HR professionals face?
Well, there's being the bad cop. There's all of the policies and procedures. There's the confidentiality, not being able to talk about things with anyone. Sometimes they are a one person HR department and they don't have anyone to help. So they're doing everything, the hiring, the onboarding, the layoffs, the disciplining, writing people up, um, sometimes even managing some of the payroll issues and the benefits. Who's taking care of the benefits? So there's a lot of pressure on the HR department, and then there's being a listening ear sometimes. I know that that was always a place where I went when I was an employee. You go to talk to HR and hope they don't put it on your permanent record. I don't want anybody to get into trouble. So I think that it's just there's a lot of pressure, and some people remote, some people in the office, on top of everything else.
Oh, and this we've answered most of these, to be honest. So we'll just keep putting these in boxes if you don't mind.
Okay,
Just help pack
sure.
this up for people. Um, why do HR professionals, why do human resource professionals need our support?
Well, that's the heart of the company. And unless the heart is taken care of, the rest of the body is going to go pooey. I mean, of course, you got the brain going on too, but you need the heart. The heart helps support the culture. It supports the employees. It keeps things.
It pumps
Hmm,
life through the body.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. If you want to use that analogy, you can just go all the way with it.
Well, I think it's a good analogy that if you think about the people that are working in your business
Hmm.
as your blood, then HR is the heart. It's the piece that's pumping that life throughout the body, and that is doing all of the work of taking nutrients out to the systems and bringing the toxins back to be processed and making
Right,
sure that the brain is supported and has all the nutrients it needs. So there's no part in the organization that isn't impacted by human resources.
right.
So
And then
it's a great analogy.
there's the whole point of engagement. I think HR. I remember being part of the spirit uh, team when I was working, and HR did all of the special celebrations, and how can we make people feel more engaged and happy and want to come to work? So there's all around um, keeping the company a place where people want to come and
Yeah.
do their best.
And where they're allowed to want to come, that there are resources in place for the humans and not just that humans are treated as resources.
Ooh.
Sorry. Feel free to
I'm going to
use that.
feel that one.
There. Um, I always thought that HR was kind of misnamed because I think that it lends itself to that imagining of human beings as fodder or humans as some sort of resource to be used up rather
Mhm.
than something that's replenished, something that's, you know, restored, something that's nurtured,
Mhm.
and maintained. So it's more like human maintenance. It's not human resources.
Or
Um,
resources for humans
yeah,
is
or
probably more
resources for
accurate.
humans. Yeah, absolutely.
And I
So,
think that's part of why there has been a trend to rename,
yeah,
the chief people officer, or,
yeah,
going along those lines
yeah.
instead.
Especially in like startups where they have a lot of big ideas that they're trying to get up
Mhm.
off the ground, for sure.
Mhm.
So, um, what is it that you bring to the table for HR professionals that they need that addresses these needs?
A place for them to be able to share in a confidential way, get supported and understood.
Yeah.
And
And and tell us a little bit about that. So you mentioned that you're going to create a support group. Is this a group coaching thing or is it one-on-one?
well, the first thing that I'm going to do is next Tuesday, the 28th at 11 a.m. Pacific time. And you'll just have to do the time change. I don't have that calculator brain. I know it's 3 hours for the East Coast difference, but still, um, I'm hosting a roundtable discussion for HR professionals. It's called HR High Performance Roundtable, and I think the sign up will be in the comments, if I'm
Yeah,
not
I
mistaken.
will put it in the comments and I just posted it to our chat window as well. In fact, anyone can chat in our chat window as long as they're subscribed to our channel. If they're subscribed to our channel for at least 1 minute, you can chat with us live, ask your own questions of us. We'd love to see it, really. But I did post that in the chat and it will be in the comments
Mhm.
after the video goes live.
But during the free roundtable, there'll be an opportunity for people to share some of the challenges they're having, to talk about resources they have found, and just be able to open up about what is most frustrating at the moment. What do you need help with? And talk to other HR professionals to see if they are running across the same problem. Because quite often, when you're dealing with challenges, you don't have the opportunity to talk about things personally.
Yeah.
And then if they have something that is personal that's going on, or if there's an issue with an employee, well, what kind of support is there for the employees who are going through a death or a divorce, or being stuck with it, kids in college and parents in nursing homes, that sandwich generation. There's all sorts of emotions that affects how people work, and I think those are part of the challenges that human resources professionals face these days. So being able to talk about it. And then during the roundtable, I'll share some information about a mastermind group that I'll be starting that will be specifically for HR professionals. And I have an ex VP of senior VP of HR that will be co-leading it with me. So he'll be there to have that lens from the HR professional mind, and
Yeah.
share a little bit of insights there.
Thank you so much for being here with us, Marianne. Before I let you off the hook, where can our audience find out more about you and the services that you provide?
Well, my website is yourshelteringtree.com. I'm on LinkedIn under my name, Marianne Udell. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram as well at Your Sheltering Tree.
Fabulous. Thank you again for being our guest, and thank you, audience, for being here with us today. We really wouldn't exist without you. And tune in next week for more Game Changer Live. And remember our motto: together we inspire. And I will see